Hey guys, Zarak here, and today I've brought my budget Zodiac deck to show you. So, as some of you who have been playing for a longer period of time will know, Zodiac was very, very popular 3 or so years ago, where it was considered one of the best decks ever made by the ability to make one card exceeds with essentially every single monster in the deck. So, the deck runs a very, very small monster lineup, which gives you loads of room for hand traps, disruption, card draw, and all that good stuff. So the deck is really, really tailorable to your meta. If you like my content, please remember to like, subscribe, share this video. We're getting loads more views on the last couple of videos, and I really hope we can keep that going. So let's get onto the deck list. We have 3 copies of Zodiac Thoroughblade. Now, Zodiac Thoroughblade allows you to filter your hand, gets rid of excess Zodiacs that you don't want in your hand, puts them in the grave so you can bring them back or attach them with Chakra or Tiger Mortar if you need to. It's your highest attack main deck Zodiac, so it's very useful when you need to push for damage, and it just allows you to sculpt your hand as well as you want and gives your main deck, your extra deck monsters piercing. We then have 3 copies of Zodiac Whiptail. Whiptail is almost like your little combat trick. Whiptail can attach itself during your opponent's turn, so it can attach itself when your opponent's declared an attack. If it's attached to that monster, the opponent's monster gets banished, and that's obviously non-targeting, non-destruction removal, which is really, really nice. And also, it's a free 1200 attack boost, so you can surprise your opponent out of nowhere by almost like an honest type effect. We have 2 copies of Zodiac Ram. Now, the supers are really expensive at the moment. They're about 7-8 quid at the moment, but you can get commons for still about £3. So don't worry. Make sure you just look through and find the right rarities for when you're finding these cards. Ram allows you to special summon Zodiacs from your graveyard, which is obviously very useful for making more Xyz monsters when it's destroyed by a card effect, which includes cards like Zodiac Barrage, of course, which is very useful, and Drident. And then during either player's turn, you can negate a trap that targets it, if it's attached to a monster as material. 1 Rapier helps set up your graveyard for your Aconine or Tiger Mortar plays. And then finally, I've put 1 Bunny Blast in as well as an extra name, as a bit of extra recursion for getting back your copies of Whiptail, and so on. We would run more Rapiers, but Rapier is at 1. So, unfortunately, its Xyz effect doesn't matter. So, for the hand traps, we have 3 copies of Ghost Bell. There are lots of effects that deal with the graveyard right now that Ghost Bell hits, particularly against decks like Virtual World. So, this is a really, really strong hand trap in the current meta. I've got 3 copies of Effect Veiler. This is very useful against decks like the new Tri-Brigade strategies, where their effects all activate on field, like their Link Monsters effects all activate on field, and it allows you to stop them that way. And finally, I've got 3 Artifact Lancier. So many decks involve banishing at the moment. You don't really care about it, and also most of your plays are done on your turn, whereas you Lancier them on your opponent's turn. So I think these are 3 of the strongest hand traps that you can run on a budget right now. This can be really, really flexible. You could put Drolls in there if you have them, Ash Blossoms, or Skullmeisters if you have them as well. It's really about tailoring it to what you have and what you want your deck to be able to do. So, on to the spells. We have 3 copies of Tenki. Tenki just searches any level 4 or lower Beast Warrior from your deck. All the Zodiacs are level 4 Beast Warriors, so this is any Zodiac in the deck that you need. We have one copy of Zodiac Barrage. This card's also at 1, unfortunately, so we have to only run the one copy, but it again allows you to get any Zodiac from your deck and is also free material for any of your Xyz monsters. So now onto the card draw. We run lots of card draw in this deck. We run 3 copies of Pot of Desires because it's a +1. We don't want to play Pot of Prosperity or Pot of Extravagance, A, because they're ridiculously expensive, and B, because we really, really need our extra deck. We do not want to banish our copies of Drident, and so on. So we run Desires. Because our deck engine is so compact, and we only really need a couple of Zodiacs to make our plays in circulation, the banishing off Desires doesn't matter a huge amount as long as you have access to a couple of Zodiacs. We then, one of the best bits about Zoodiac is we can really abuse Pot of Avarice. Because all of the Zodiacs are Xyz monsters, and because they can all summon on top of each other, we can make a big stack of them, link them off into something, or detach them all for the various effects, play a Pot of Avarice, immediately shuffle them all back, or stick them all back in the extra deck, and then refill our hand. Two copies of Book of Moon. You can't link summon with face down monsters, and it's very, very strong. It helps turn off cards like Vanity's Ruler in Drytron, forces out negates very easily from cards like Herald of Ultimateness, and is just a very, very flexible card. It's good going first, it's good going second. Two copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This is generic spell trap removal, easy outs, and doesn't give Eldritch free grave setups. One Foolish Burial, puts any Zodiac in the graveyard to revive later. And then finally, onto the traps, we run 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Sometimes you just need to blow up the field. You can recycle most of your monsters very easily with Pot of Avarice, and so on, and your opponent may struggle more to do that. And finally, 3 copies of Solemn Strike as the best catch-all counter trap out there. So that's the main deck. Now, for the extra deck, we have our Zodiac monsters. We have 1 copy of Zodiac Drident. This is now really, really cheap thanks to the reprints. This is your main Zodiac Interruption. It's a quick effect pop of any card on the field. It's really, really strong. Unfortunately, it's still at 1, so we can only play 1. But if this ever goes back up to more than 1, be very, very glad. But at least we can recycle it with Pot of Avarice. We have 3 copies of Zodiac Chakanine. Zodiac Chakanine allows you to revive any Zodiac from your graveyard, but it can't be used as an Xyz material. This card got really expensive before the maximum gold reprint was announced, but now it's back down. It's under £1.50 at the moment a copy. It's really, really cheap. You can also use it to revive copies of cards like Hammerkong. Hammerkong would normally have to detach for an effect, but because Chakanine negates its effect, it doesn't have to do that, then it will regain its effect during your opponent's turn. This is one of the cards you use when you're making your Mega Clops lines. You have 2 copies of Zodiac Tiger Mortar. This is one of the cards that's missing reprints along with Thoroughblade. And this is a nice Xyz because it just gets us extra material, keeps Zodiacs in circulation, brings back your copy of Whiptail or Ram for negates or banishes, and just helps you manipulate your graveyard and your Xyz material that way. We have 1 copy of Zodiac Borbo. This isn't necessary. This could be any other Zodiac. It's just there as a name, which allows you 1 extra material, because you can only summon them once per turn. with their effects to overlay on top of any one Zoodiac. So having the Borbo there is just an extra Zoodiac name in your extra deck. Its effect is borderline irrelevant. And then finally, for the Zoodiac Xyz monsters, we have one Zoodiac Hammerkong, which is a protection for all your Zoodiacs from targeting, as long as it's got Xyz material. Well, so you can make plays involving using Chakanine to summon this back from the graveyard, attaching a material to it with Tiger Mortar, and then it will protect. It won't need to detach in your end phase because its effect is negated until your opponent's turn, but it will still protect your Zoodiac monsters next turn. So that's it for the Zoodiac component of the extra deck. Now onto the generic component. So we have one Brotherhood of the Firefist Tiger King. Now this card is really, really strong. It allows you to negate the effects of all non-Beast Warrior type monsters on the field. This doesn't come up against every deck. So for example, decks like, obviously you can't negate a lot of Drytron's end boards with this because they'll stop you from doing it, but decks like the Tri-Brigade variants and decks like that maybe they have certain negates but not enough to stop you making a rank 4, and it just gives you that stopgap to allow you to make more plays. We have one copy of Abyss Dweller. Again, lots of graveyard effects. We can make it. We're a rank 4 deck, although we do rely more on our Zoodiac cards. But some decks just really, really struggle to play against a copy of Abyss Dweller. One copy of Drill Driver Vespinato. This is for pushing for extra damage. Ideally, we would run AA Zeus. We cannot afford that in this deck. It's £65 to £75 a copy. I was fortunate enough to get my copy when they were £35, right after Phantom Rage was released, but it has since gone up significantly. This is how we push for extra damage. Obviously, most of the Zoodiacs have very low attack, unless we have Whiptails or Thoroughblades underneath them, but this allows us to convert any Zoodiac into a 2500 piercing damage monster. We have one Firefighting Daruma. This is more back row disruption. This is specific to Beast Warriors or Wing Beasts. It lets us pop our copies of Barrage that have been used, or Tenki that we don't need, to A, free up a bit of space, and B, if we can't make Phoenix for whatever reason. It's just essentially a second copy of Phoenix, but also has the added effect of just giving us a little bit more recursion if it destroys a monster by battle. We have one copy of Phoenix. Again, this and Daruma are very, very interchangeable, but they're just useful in slightly different situations. Daruma, if you don't have a discard, is obviously better if you have a face-up copy of Tenki, whereas Phoenix, you may not have any back row that you can destroy with Daruma. It's just the more generic out, but requires a discard. Have Nightmare Unicorn, generic out to anything. It's a really, really strong card, and thanks to its recent reprint, is now so cheap, which is really, really good for budget players. And then finally, we have one Infinitrack Fortress Megaclops. Now, this card, when Zoodiac first sort of started getting rumours about coming back, a lot of people were worried that this card would be very, very difficult to out. Now, this card is difficult to out, but since cards like Zeus have come in, it's much, much easier to out than it once was. So you don't want to commit to this card without knowing what your opponent is going to do. This is not your, I make this turn 1 regardless. This is a, I know they don't play Zeus, or they have already made their Zeus, and now I know they can't beat this card. So this card will win you games if you play it at the correct time and against the correct decks, but it should not be an automatic, I must get this out every game, and this is my win condition. Your win condition is grinding through using your huge amounts of recursion, card draw, and one-card engines to allow you to just systematically break their board before you can slowly whittle down their life points. So that's the deck. I hope you've enjoyed the profile. For upgrades, obviously the absolute first one you want to go towards is Zeus. That's a really expensive commitment, I'm aware, but that is the best thing you can put into this deck to really elevate it to another level. If you want cheaper upgrades, there are obviously the new Alpha, the King of Beasts from Phantom Rage is really, really strong in the deck. For tuning it to go second, perhaps. Obviously, there's the usual Forbidden Droplets, Access Code Talker, Triple Tactics Talent, Lightning Storm that you all know about. But also there's things like looking at Invoked packages, Eldritch packages, which are getting more and more cheap because of the reprints for Golden Lord. There's obviously, you could add a small Dogmatica engine with Ecclesia and Punishment. You don't have to worry too much about Nadir Servant, but again, just remember that Punishment locks you out of your extra deck. Again, also, you can tune the hand traps however you like, and the traps, and most of the spells. If you want to run a different Solemn package, or some more floodgatey types of hand traps, or anything like that, that is your prerogative. The deck is really, really flexible and can be played in loads of different ways. Other things, I have a profile of Tri-Brigade Zodiac on my channel, so if you want another way you could take this deck, that's another option you could look at. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.